Jazz Club.
Hey everyone, happy Monday. It's Monday again. It's Monday at 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and we're back at it with another episode of The Death of Cliff Huxtable. Hope you all had a great weekend. You know, it is what it is. Here we are. We are enduring, more COVID stuff, and we're continuously watching what's happening all over the country in terms of protests, and this weekend was no different. And so we hope that if you're out there demonstrating and using your voice for change, that you're being safe. Please wear your mask. It's a message that I know you're hearing ad nauseum, but you gotta protect yourself. You gotta protect other people. If you haven't been tested yourself and you don't know whether or not you're positive or negative or what have you, it's so important to just kind of, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. How's everyone doing? We're live on YouTube, and we're live on Facebook, and we're live on Twitter. If you go to divablueproductions.com, you'll be able to see the live feed there as well. The YouTube feed runs directly from that as well. But wherever you're watching, we hope that you're comfortable and be ready to enjoy an awesome night of storytelling. Tonight, I'm excited that we are finally introducing the character of Cliff and the actor who will be portraying him. Before we get to tonight's reading of chapter 6 entitled Elvin, I do want to highlight my next intern, since that's a good way to start off the show on a coming out of what's happening in the world. We get to celebrate the excellence of the people who are helping me put this whole program together. Tonight, I want to bring to the front Cameron Swann. Cam is a student of mine at Prairie View A&M University. He is he's a communication major, the mass communication focus. And he's the producer, he's a writer, creator, producer of his own web series called Dead Battery, which he's constantly, just kind of, chiseling away at the rock that is production in that respect. And you probably hear him tinkering in the background there. While we're doing the show, he live tweets as me on Twitter. So he manages my Twitter account and the PVAMU TV Twitter account and highlighting what we're doing. And so I just want to say hey to Cam. Hey, brother.
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. I see what you got on your shirt there. It had to be done. Yes.
Had to. I gotta represent.
I know that's right, brother. So Cam, tell us about who you are and what you do. What are your aspirations?
All right. My name is Cameron Swann. I will be a senior this coming fall. 21 years old, from Dallas, Texas. Communication major with a concentration in mass communication and a minor in sociology. My aspirations, I want to continue to doing with film, but also I want to go into being a journalism teacher as well, to teach people about that journalism world, just to help the youth be better than who I am, basically.
Awesome. Who are you watching as role models in the entertainment industry and in journalism that inspires you and hopefully put you on the path where you want to be?
In all honesty, me coming up, I was more into the sports journalism, so I always look up to more of Stephen A. Smith because of where he came from and how he get back to the community. So I'm more on that aspect because again, I like supporting my own people. And I love uplifting them and coming up, and I want them to be better than how I came up, basically. So I always look up to him and how he did it.
Your energy and your look actually reminds me a lot of Stuart Scott. Stuart Scott was my favorite sports journalist, broadcaster with ESPN. Cool like the other side of the pillow. I see that in you. You are a part of the sports journalism team that we have for PBAMU TV, and I'm just thankful that you're serving your professional internship with me this summer as we produce the series. Is there anything you want the audience to know about Dead Battery, or any of your other projects that you may have coming up?
Yes. Okay. So Dead Battery, basically what it is it's about basically to keeping your mental and your energy up. Basically, how it started was I encountered many times where my mental health always been drained. So basically, it's the Dead Battery. The purpose is to avoid being a dead battery. Always keep your energy up. Never let anything that's not going for your life drain you out. And I have a new project coming out around homecoming, basically to educate people about different ways to avoid things that will drain you out and make you lose your focus in the semester. And also, I also do my own clothing line as well with Dead Battery to spread awareness with it as well, to keep the youth and also keep the young adults involved as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cam, for hopping on at the top of the show tonight, just so we can, give you your flowers and applaud you and say thank you. And like I said, if you see me tweeting during the show and you're looking at the show and you're like, how is she doing these magical things? I'm a witch. No, I'm just kidding. That is Cam. That is Cam working his magic and supporting me in all the ways that I need to make the show successful on social media. And I appreciate you, Cam. Cam, when he talks about his work, I love that he said, and I also have. Oh, and I also have. And that's like every day in class with Cam. Oh, TDV, I have this. Oh, and I also have. And this is one of the busiest brothers, but most productive brothers I know at Prairie View. So I appreciate you being here tonight. All right.
No problem.
All right. I love my students. I've been teaching now for 26 years. 3.5 years at Prairie View, but various other places. In fact, one of my former students is one of our panelists tonight. But I'm jumping ahead. We'll introduce our panelists a little bit later. One of the joys of watching the protests and stuff, and I say the joys, is that I've been around young people for so long and watched them develop their ideas and their voices and use higher ed to help shape the message that they want to convey and how they want to convey it. And so we have people like Cam and, just the people that I've had the experience of working with over the nearly 30 years. I just love ringing my triangle for them. And we'll continue to do that. We have someone else next week on Thursday, we'll highlight as well. I'm rocking green a little bit for a couple people who said they like all the color, the blue and all that. And we have 2 people that told me that their favorite color is green. So big thank, here we are. Audrey and Cheryl, this is for you, as well as for my sister, LaShawn, Little Green. All right, let's get into the reading tonight. Tonight we are reading chapter 6, Elvin. His desk always looked so big. The only place Elvin could imagine himself being during the repast was the exact same place he had his last conversation with Dr. Huxtable. Snagging a bottle of rye whiskey and a glass before hiding away, Elvin spends the entire night sitting in Dr. Huxtable's office with the spirit of his mentor.
Can we go back like a week?
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's go back.
Okay. Elvin wants to go back 1 week, September 13th. Saturday, September 13th, the day Dr. Huxtable became Cliff to Elvin. It would be the day his hero would become his friend.
Dr. Huxtable, are you home?
Down here, Elvin. I'm in the office.
Elvin makes his way down to Dr. Huxtable's office. Elvin greets Dr. Huxtable, who is getting up from his chair, hanging up his doctor's coat on the nearby coat rack. He invites Elvin in to sit down with him.
Thanks, Dad. How are you? How's the baby making business?
All the babies keep coming. So business is good. How's general practice?
The 4th of July and Halloween keep reminding us that idiots exist with ample proof, so, it's good on my end, too.
Well, good. Hey, Elvin.
Yes, Dr. Huxtable?
Wait, why do you do that? Bounce back and forth between calling me Dad or Dr. Huxtable. You never call me Cliff. You bounce between the familiar and the formal. Why?
Well, sir, I don't know. Mostly out of respect, I guess. The rest, out of fear?
Why fear, son?
Oh, some days I still feel like the knucklehead who came into your home spouting Neanderthal things about women and nearly unraveling your dreams of Sandra becoming a lawyer and marrying a doctor.
Elvin, don't fear me. Do not. I'm no one to fear. You love my daughter, gave me beautiful grandchildren, healed the sick and wounded. You have long before today earned my respect. You've earned my friendship.
Yes, sir.
So first, please call me Cliff.
Yes, sir.
Cliff.
Yes, but Doctor?
Cliff.
Dr. Cliff?
Boy, just Cliff.
Cliff.
There you go. See, that wasn't so difficult. Elvin and Cliff, friends.
Friends. Elvin and Cliff. Clifford?
Who? Man, just Cliff. You get a poor man an inch, he takes a mile.
Sorry, sir, Cliff.
Okay, moving on. Look, I called you over because I'm nearing the end.
Nearing the end of what?
Many years ago, a young man, general medicine physician, married a woman, an aspiring attorney, and they together had a family.
Okay, so this is one of Cliff's long ago man met a woman musings. We've heard a minute of them a million times over. I mean, you have to give him respect, even though you've heard it a million times. But honestly, I loved all million of them.
Children. They loved each other. They built each other up. They raised their children. This has been a fulfilled life. Elvin, today I'm retiring from my practice. I'm hanging up my coat, and I want you to take over.
Wait, what? You want me?
Yes, you. I want you to take over my practice here in this house. I'm giving you and Sandra the house.
Your home, sir?
Yes. Claire's going to have a similar discussion with Sandra next week when she returns from Virginia. She's down at Hillman for a trustees meeting. We have decided to retire to Virginia.
And leave New York?
Well, that's required for retiring in Virginia.
You know what I mean. Why are you leaving Brooklyn?
Well, Claire and I are old.
Don't let Mrs. Huxtable hear you say that. Oh, and I will not, nor will I ever call her Claire.
Still scared of her, hey?
Always.
Yeah, me too.
No, not you.
Claire's getting ornery, rattlesnake ornery.
And you're moving to Virginia, to the country, with a rattlesnake?
That's funny, son. I'll have to share that one with her.
Oh, God, no.
We want to enjoy the rest of our lives. We want a slower pace, less noise, time to walk, roses to smell.
I understand.
You know, this city hadn't felt the same since 9/11. Losing Martin in the towers, it has not been the same since. Listen, Elvin, the house is going to be left to you and Sandra. Grow old and happy. This is your office. This is your home. Come on over. Come over to this side.
So I slowly got up out of my chair. I go to the other side of the desk. What am I doing over here? Cliff goes to his filing cabinet and unlocks the bottom drawer. He slides the drawer open and pulls out a rectangular cedar gift box. Cliff, beaming with a warm smile, places the cedar box on the desk in front of me.
Some years ago, I bought my new son-in-law this gift. It's a gift I held on to until a time I was certain it would be in great care. I've long since watched you grow and evolve into my son, a fine doctor, and a friend. Just as I give you the keys to this home, I also give you this again and finally the keys to this practice. Dr. Elvin Thibodeau.
I open the cedar chest. Tiffany blue colored tissue paper covers the gold stethoscope. Cliff bought this for me, but Sandra and I decided to open up a wilderness store, and the inscription still etched into the instrument.
To Elvin, straight from my heart.
I love you, Dad.
I love you too, son.
Be careful with Mom in the wilderness.
Oh, I've made it this far with old rattlesnake Huxtable. I will gladly go a little far.
I'm going to tell Mom you said that.
I'm going to tell her you came up with the name.
The two men deepen their embrace and laughter together one last time. Elvin looks across the desk at the empty doctor's chair. He finishes his glass of whiskey and sets the glass on the side table nearest the chair. He gets up from his chair and crosses around to the doctor's seat. He pulls the seat back and with care and reverence slides down onto the throne.
Thank you, Dad. Dr. Huxtable. Thank you, Cliff.
Go into our panel discussion tonight, battling imposter syndrome. Tonight, our panel will look at the complexities of stepping into shoes that may be incredibly difficult to fill. So thematically, we can see how this ties into the story we just read. But also, what it looks like to have to constantly prove yourself or feel as if you have to prove yourself in spaces where your value or your worth or your presence is constantly challenged. And we see that somewhat in the unrest that we have here today, or as neighbors contest the validity of a person's presence in a neighborhood or what have you. So let me share with you who's our panelists in talking about imposter syndrome. First up, I want to introduce Stephen Aisabokhae. Stephen, born in Nigeria, grew up in an extremely religious and educational focused family. Later phases of his educational career included obtaining a bachelor's degree in accounting from a prestigious university in Nigeria. In 2017, he obtained a master's in community development at Prairie View A&M University. I'm excited and proud to also convey that Stephen is a fellow cohort member, cohort 13. Like, I've asked my cohort members from my Ph.D. studies to really participate in this series and play with me in the sandbox, because I am getting my PhD with some of the most amazing, brilliant people I've ever worked with. And so I've asked Stephen to join us tonight because his area of focus is Black male development and intervention strategies for academic excellence. He focuses in particular on how Black men deal with imposter syndrome. Gretta Blackwell, Ph.D., is an assistant professor of communication at Prairie View A&M University. Her research focuses on race, class, and popular media. We also have Justin Key, who is joining us. Justin is a working entrepreneur, actor, published author, and keynote speaker. He's a guest star of the second season of the Amazon Prime show, God Complex. Justin is the author of Mind Control. It's a how-to self-help book that centers around living a life without limits. This brother's he's a bad man. I tell you, I've known Justin for a good long while. He was a student at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy when I was a faculty member there. And I just admired him at that time when we were both at AMDA. He is a native of Rossville, Tennessee, a city that officially named Rossville February 24th, officially as Justin Key Day, and gave him the key to the city. His hometown gave the man the key to the city. He's been named one of Black Enterprises Magazine's 2019 Men of Distinctions, and he is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We also have Dr. Stella Smith, who is one of our anchors, someone who is just a voice of reason, as I've mentioned many times before, as she served as a panelist on a few different episodes of this series. And she's back with us tonight as a reminder of who this wonderful academic giant is. Dr. Stella Smith is the Associate Director of the Minority Achievement, Creativity, and High Ability Center at Prairie View A&M University. It's also known to those of us on the Hill as the Mach 3 Center. It's a part of the Whitlow R. Green College of Education. Her research focus on the experiences of faculty and administrators of color in higher education, African American females in leadership in higher ed, and access and inclusion of underserved populations in higher education. Dr. Smith earned her doctorate in educational administration from the University of Texas at Austin. And we also have Ms. Monique L. Thomas, who again is making a return, another one of our anchors, voices of great depth and rich wisdom. Monique is the program coordinator at the Caltech Center for Inclusion and Diversity in Pasadena, California, where she coordinates programs, training, and resources for undergraduates and underrepresented communities, including African American, Black, Latinx, and Native American students. Monique studied communication and performance study at Cal State San Bernardino and at Cal State LA, and has participated in a summer program performance program at Northwestern University. Her creative works are centered around issues of identity, representation, and family. Her most recent work, Hair Journey, an autoethnographic performance, explores Black women's hair as the site of cultural performance and the source of joy, pain, struggle, redemption, and resistance. And it's an amazing show. I've had the opportunity to see it already as well. And I just want to say thank you for coming on. I think that's everyone, plus our cast members. Yeah, so I think I was able to introduce everyone and welcome this panel. It's an embarrassment of riches, quite frankly, to have all of you on and to have you participate in the series, in some of your cases for the first time tonight, in other cases multiple times. And so I greatly appreciate you all being here tonight. How's everyone feeling? Just kind of round robin, just kind of let us know how you're doing tonight.
Good. I think it's been awesome. It was really, I thought, a very good reading of the Elvin and Cliff kind of dynamic. So I thought it was great.
Thank you. How you all feeling?
I also thought it was good. I mean, this particular read has a little bit different than the other reads, where it was much more hopeful. So it was interesting to see Elvin's how he is processing the loss of Cliff versus how Cliff's daughters were processing his loss. So it was an amazing read.
Thank you. Awesome. Hey, Justin, how you feeling, brother? Oh, I'm sorry, Monique. Yes, you go.
Sorry. Real quick, no, I enjoyed it. I've been watching the rehearsals, but it's always so different on, opening night to hear it and just all the emotions and things. So I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm good.
She said, and I'm good. Yeah.
And I'm good.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Not only was it good, but I really did need this healthy distraction from what's currently happening in the world right now. And thank you, because this type of creativity has always been just a blessing and a way for us as a people to really take a breather, take a step back, to refill our cup, and then go out and do what we're supposed to do. So thank you for the creativity, for the talent, and I'm grateful. Grateful.
Excellent. How you feeling, Stephen?
Yes, it was amazing. Like watching the whole readings and listening to, especially the part of Elvin. It was interesting to me because I was trying to look through and pick out the areas of imposter syndrome expressions. And I mean, just watching the play and listening and going through the readings alongside, or I did the readings before I watching the play, but I mean, I could just feel the expressions and then read in between the lines to find out the feelings of imposter syndrome there. I mean, which I believe is the center point of our conversation tonight. So, I mean, it was great.
Yeah. You know, Elvin, since the time his character was introduced on the show, has always had this sort of proving himself that he's had to do, whether he was worthy of being with Sandra or the rebuilding that he had to endure with in terms of his relationship with Claire. And then obviously being a chosen budding physician who very clearly was to emulate Sandra's father. How Elvin had to endure imposter syndrome. How did he fare as someone who at different times had to prove himself?
I mean, honestly, from my readings and my research, I feel like, and I've seen situations where, I mean, everybody needs to prove themselves at different level. The whole idea is how you internalize such feelings in terms of like proving, not in a bad way, but I mean, just trying to put yourself out there in a good light so that people who are around you can perceive you to be genuine, to be intelligent, to be smart, to be worth either the salary you're earning or something like that. I mean, so watching the whole play and seeing what the character Elvin, it speaks so much to me because this is everyday life. You know, the character himself, from research and what I've read, is such that you don't know when you're going through this process. You know, it's more like a psychological thing. You don't know you're displaying such tendencies, but
sure.
But someone needs to tell you that the way it's being portrayed is rather an impulse. It's a point of concern. However, it's a normal day living. It's a normal day expression for everybody. So I've heard people say, I don't think I have imposter syndrome. I mean, this is just me. Yeah. I'm trying to be better every day. I'm trying to do great. I mean, so you telling me I have a condition? Well, I don't think that's true, you know, but that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It has negative effects as well as it could have a positive effect.
Sure. Dr. Blackwell, it looks like you're ready to double dutch in there. You're in there. You're like, ah.
Yeah, no, I think that it's such an interesting concept. And, you know, it is psychological and under the radar for a lot of people. So I just really kind of vibed with that point. But one of the things that I think is really particularly interesting about imposter syndrome, and I think that it comes out really well with Elvin and his character and kind of the insecurities that we witness as viewers. And that's kind of the fact that there's this confidence and insecurity or timidity that's occupying the same space. And so with Elvin, we see on the one hand, he's confident in his abilities. You know, he applies to medical school, he starts the wilderness store, he takes all of these actions that put him in these positions where he's having to, quote unquote, prove himself time and time again. And at the same time, we also see this kind of crippling fear behind the scenes that, you know, despite being admitted or despite being at dinner in the Huxtable home, he still has these concerns about whether or not he fits in and whether or not he belongs. And so I just think that's a really kind of interesting tension that surfaces with imposter syndrome, and also something that we really see clearly in Elvin's character.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I would say, and I'm going to agree that the imposter syndrome has been around from the beginning. Even if you want to jump back to biblical times, Jeremiah, what God was like, "You're ready," and he was like, "No, I'm not." Jonah, God was like, "Go down and talk to my people," and Jonah was like, them folks crazy down there. Like, and God was like, "No, but you're ready." And then looking at Elvin is the quintessential Black person in our particular. we're always told that we have to work 10 times as hard, but we work so hard that we sometimes don't even realize that we made it. Like, we're here and we deserve to be here. Like, for those that have terminal degrees or getting their terminal degree, that first day in class, like, ooh, you should ain't make a mistake on the admissions. It was supposed to be here.
Man.
Yeah, and the school is like, no, your letter of recommendations, your transcripts, like you deserve to be here. And so I think that imposter syndrome, sometimes it can sneak up and punch us like Mike Tyson, and sometimes, it just takes us a while we're at the table, but it's like, do I eat? Which fork do I pick up? And so I think it comes in, it's been around from the beginning, and then it just comes in different spurts or in different levels. And Elvin is a prime example of how it shows up even in like the professional intellectual world.
I wanted to, and sort of along with that, I think in the work that I do, we think about marginalized groups, right? Being in predominantly white institutions and what it means to feel like an imposter. But what I love about this story is that we don't talk about it within our own culture and what it means to be that next generation coming up that has to live up to my father's expectations, my grandparents' expectations. And I watched so many clips of like civil rights in the 60s and all the things they didn't have and what they accomplished and what they're doing. And me, and even students and young people that I work with sort of stepping into those shoes, if you will. And so I really love that tension between not looking at it from sort of his space as a Black man, and that's a part of it, but his space stepping into Dr. Huxtable's shoes. And I think that's really interesting in terms of that he felt like an imposter in that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeremiah, how does it feel for you? I saw you rise up and like celebrate when you heard your namesake kind of reference there.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I didn't study any of this kind of stuff. Honestly, the first time, and I shouldn't say the first time because I've heard the term before, but when I first read that this week we were going to talk about imposter syndrome, I kind of, typed it up and said, okay, let me read a little bit more about this. And I started reading it and I was like, that's crazy, because I feel like I was just having this conversation with one of my friends like a week or two ago about how, and not to make it about me, but
make it about you.
I guess I feel like this is talking to me, because I was just talking to my buddy about how sometimes, and it always happens when I'm feeling more down, right? When things are good and I'm flipping everything, it's fine. But then when I start getting down a little bit, because emotions here and there, I start feeling like I'm supposed to be the person who is better, right, than everything else. I have 6 brothers and sisters, and I got to make sure that I'm the shining example that everybody can look up to. And in my friend group, I have to be the one who, if somebody needs help, if somebody needs something, I want to be the one they turn to and say, yo, Jeremiah, help me, like, can I talk to you, like, help me through this kind of thing. And I've always tried to play that role, but then do I really deserve to be there? What am I doing that makes me the guy that people want to turn to help out? And so I get real down because I just don't, sometimes I just don't feel like I deserve that space, I guess. But that's always been, in my mind, that's always been the role that I have to play. And so it's really hard to come to terms with that sometimes. And I think that, reading, I will have Wikipedia up right here because I got home today from work and I was like, you gotta read more about this. It's really interesting, and I feel like it's talking to me right now. But
yeah, I think it's your gut. I think, without worrying about Wikipedia or all those other things, I think what you're describing is exactly that. It's that sinking feeling that somehow either the resources I have or the person that I am or the job that I'm doing, or somehow there's this element of either A, not being enough, or B, not being deserving.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's the untraining, what's the rewiring we have to do to convey the very opposite? Dr. Smith,
yes.
This, we talk a lot in our studies with you about claiming space. And, with the last class you taught a class in diversity. And claiming space and being in, and not only you understanding why you're in a particular space, but understanding why other people are there too and seeing their value. Is there something in that seeing not only your value, but the value of other people being in that space that can help with this? Is there a way to deprogram ourselves from this?
I think there is. I mean, there's always going to be someone in that space that wants to be the head honcho in that space. So that's going to be. But I think overall, when everyone acknowledges the value of others in a space, that helps to work with imposter syndrome. Now, many of the panelists have said some of this is internal. So if you are applying an internal imposter syndrome, then it won't matter how much people are validating you on the outside. That is a process that you're going to have to work through. But at least you won't be also fighting an experience where people external to you are also devaluing you, because that happens a lot. We said in spaces of predominantly white institutions, it happens at HBCUs too. So we're talking more about race in this conversation, but there's also a gendered piece to imposter syndrome as well. So it's whenever you're in a space where either people outside of you give you some kind of impression where they don't believe that you are good enough to be in that space, or you have not gone through the trials and tribulations that you need to be in that space, or within yourself, you are not, for some reason, you're questioning your preparation for that space.
Sure.
In terms of how I personally deal with imposter syndrome, I figure if I got in the room, I deserve to be there.
Come on.
So, I turn on my, whatever my song is, and I go on with it. So whatever, and it changes, whatever my pride song changes. But it's like, if I got in that room, then how do I even show people that I'm supposed to be here if I don't say anything or if I don't show up?
Yeah.
And then it becomes performance to get past imposter syndrome. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I work through, because I do agree it's been here forever, and I think everybody experiences it in some way, in some fashion. So it's just about, when you're feeling it, how do you make sure that you are? How do you work through it in that moment?
Is it enough to simply just embrace that idea that I'm in the room because I deserve to be here and I'm in here?
So I obviously that is psychologically damaging when people tell you that you are only, you're the diversity hire or whatever. So I don't want to discount how damaging that can be. Can give you an example. I once had a job. The person that was leaving was training me, and they told me the only reason why you're in this job is because you're Black. And what I told them was, well, you might be right, but I'm in the job. So my confidence is how I get through that. It's challenging and it's rattling. And I'm not saying that I didn't go home and cry that day, but in that moment, I was able to have a retort to that person around the imposter syndrome. And it's hard. I'm not saying that it's easy. And this has taken a lot of a modeling and of being in a lot of different spaces where people didn't think I should be there. So to be able to default to, I deserve to be here. So let's get down to to default to that. It does take some mental work. It does take some mental time. But, at this age, I'm very confident about what I bring to the table. And so what I hope to do in the classes is make my students confident about what they bring to the table too. Regardless of what level that might be, whether that's graduate or undergraduate, high school, whatever it is, I want them to feel so fabulous about who they are that when they walk in space, they are shielded but with that knowledge.
Well, I like to fight, so I wish somebody would say that to my face. So you know what? Just forward me the email wherever they at right now.
You got it.
I got you. I got you, and I got a whole group of millennials ready to fight.
Don't y'all see Justin's cape blowing in the wind? That's what I got.
You playing games.
Yeah, playing games.
Where does that come from, Justin? Where does that come from? So that we can all share in that. Where does that come from? Because it's not bravado, it's confidence.
Yeah,
Where does that come from?
You know, it's confidence, and also depends on. For me, and I think you and I spoke about this on LinkedIn TV about us seeing the generation before us go through so much, and it's like, you know what? One more time for my mom to be passed over something, because I'm seeing her at home. Like, oh, I'm not going to cook dinner today, you know, and then you find out that she's been treated a certain way. The glass ceiling has been lowered more and more and more. And so you just really get fed up because, you know, each generation afterwards, we want them to be a little bit more privileged because you worked so hard. But then because you start seeing like, why is she being treated like that? And you get really, really angry. And then it's like, you know what? I got it. Mama, you can go ahead and be politically correct. But I know I'm not this. It's frustrating. Like there's only so much. And like my parents told me the other day, it's like, we know you were Malcolm. We thought you was Martin all these years. And you just get fed up, y'all. Yeah. You can have every degree I got. I don't care. Don't touch my plants though. But you can have every degree I got. Y'all, it's frustrating. Yeah. It's so frustrating. These microaggressions and if you're not in therapy, that stuff can just compound. And we really have to be our brother and our sister's keeper. So don't worry, tag me in. I got you.
You make a really good point about like family. So seeing what your family went through in order for you to be where you are, I wish somebody would. You know, given what my experiences has been and what my family has sacrificed in order for me to be where I am right now. So that's it. That's perfect. I think that's a place that it can well up from.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I was thinking about, my parents would have been in their 90s this year. I was the change of life baby. Don't ask questions. So,
and don't ask questions.
Don't ask. My siblings are in their 60s now. So my brother and I are having these really interesting conversations about civil rights because he remembers, he lived through segregation. So he's telling me these stories. But I was thinking today about, I'm in a position now in my work in diversity. And now all of a sudden my institution, which is a PWI, which is a highly, institute, my students are now in those spaces where they're feeling the imposter syndrome. They're feeling it not only from being in a white institution where Albert Einstein walked, they're feeling it because the generations who came before them, and women too, I get this from students who were students of color and women, that there are women who came before them who said, but it was hard for me, why are you complaining? And so you get this sense of, well, then I must be weak. I'm not enough, right? So that's part of my conversation with them, is helping them own their space and have that space. But I was thinking today about my mother working in homes. She worked as a home healthcare nurse in the 1980s. And she would work in these homes and they would say, if you have a minute, if you could just do some light vacuuming, if you could just do the dishes, right? And she did. And part of it was because she wanted me to have those opportunities that she didn't have. But I think about, is it Darryl's point, that she bowed her head so that I wouldn't have to. You know what I mean? Like she went through all of that humiliation, that being quiet, let me just go along to get along so that I would not have to. So I show up in the world as so unapologetic about my identity because the generations before me could not do that. And could not do it just because it wasn't proper, could not do it because they could be killed. And we still can today. But it's like, and that even more so I'm fighting. And even more so I'm fighting for the generation after me, because I'm like, no, we bowed our heads enough so that you don't have to.
Yeah. So what's the work that we could do to reframe history? We've talked a lot about the civil rights movement. We've talked a lot about, and even in our protesting and our demonstration, how we show up in the world, we're using the framing of where we are today based on where we've come from. Are we capable? Are we able? Are we entitled enough to say, I will acknowledge the past, but how can we exist in the right here and right now, or is that possible?
Yes, I would say everything starts for me. And from the readings I've had over the past, is that everything should start from the family unit. I think at the family, the nucleus of a growing child, that family space is a space for affirmation. Like when parents kind of, make their children feel safe and, give them those affirmative words that would will put them in the right frame of mind. Now, I can remember when I was growing up, I was put in a new school, and previously, before I got to that school, I wasn't doing pretty well academically. I was really like behind. But by the time I got to this new school, something in me sparked, to begin to read, and I read so well. And for the first time in a full academic session, I was on top of my class, not just the class, but the entire grade. So when I took those results home, my dad told me something. He said, "Stephen, it's either there are no students in your class, or all the students in your class are actually duller than you." Coming from a space where I constantly failed, and then all of a sudden you are now top of the class, not just top of the class, but top of the grade. It's either you are the only student in class, so they don't have anybody who came before you, who performed better than you, or everybody who is in that class is duller than you. And it took my counselor so much effort to convince my parents that I was actually good. But that's coming from my parents weakened me, because I came home excited with my result. I'm like, "Daddy, things have changed." And then hearing these words from him weakened my spirit immediately. Now, I hold that every day I see my dad till today. Like, it plays in I can't even forget, but those were the times I started dealing with this thing called, because I had to begin to rethink myself. Like, is it really true? Am I just the best of all the dollars in the class, or am I just, am I the only one in this class? That was really something to, after then, all my results to date have been excellent, because I needed to keep that cycle going and let my father know that I'm actually taking my life serious, So, family affirmation is very important. And you can see from the play that, when Elvin started saying, "Oh, I'm a knucklehead," and, giving himself that personal reflection or evaluation of himself, and then quickly, Cliff kind of say, "Oh, I'm proud of you," and giving him some, affirmative words that kind of made him begin to smile and feel good about himself. Coming from somebody he looked up to or feared that much, saying you have great qualities, have respect for you, and all those kind of things, kind of made him feel good about himself. So if we start from the family unit, from the family, small unit, and say, "Oh, you're good, you're this, wherever you find yourself, you are the best," and all of that, I think it's going to go a long way to kind of, help the coming generation succeed and be great.
I just love Stephen. Stephen's energy it's coffee. In the morning, it's like the first thing I love to do is see what Stephen's talking about in the world. We had this assignment, I'll just say this real quick. We had this assignment in our ed tech class last semester where we had to regularly post videos of, and Valentine's Day was in the middle of it all. And Stephen was like, "It's the day of love. Welcome everyone." And after that, every post had this sort of love sort of connection to it. That's his energy. I love his spirit. How do we move forward? We have a lot of educators in the space. We have parents in the space. We have grandparents in the space. What do we tell the next generation? What do we tell those babies? Jeremiah, what do we tell Silas and Calix about the space they belong in? Dr. Blackwell, what do we tell your daughter about the space they belong in? What do we say to the people who have next?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a challenging question. I think one of the things that really became clear to me just in the last couple of minutes as we've been talking about some of this is the importance of the kind of psychological work that has to happen behind the scenes. The scripts that we have in our minds, the ways we think about ourselves, the way we process the comments that other people make about us really has such a great impact on how we exist in certain spaces, how we negotiate and navigate certain spaces. And so I don't know. I don't know how we change some of the scripts that have been used for many, many years. Some of those scripts, I think, arguably contribute to some of the feelings and emotions that fuel imposter syndrome. And what scripts we add, because it's still so important to be clear about what it means to be a Black woman or a Black man and to enter into certain spaces. And so the short answer to your question is I really don't know. I don't know what we say that will have a measurable impact, that will make it easier for the next generation to enter into some of these spaces and not have to do some of that really challenging and sometimes painful work around sorting out, okay, I'm here and I belong. And even if so-and-so says I don't, I do. Right. It's something that I think each of us have had to go through at various points and kind of sort through and figure it out and tell ourselves what we need to say in order to get through that moment. And so yeah, I'm not really sure what we say.
Jeremiah.
Yeah. I guess the most important thing, and I guess to kind of Stephen's point, right, is that it's starting with the family unit. I've always been one to when my boys fail at something, and they're 7 and 4, so how much can I fail at, but like the video game, or Silas is reading right now, right? So he's even though we're going through COVID and everything, so he's been home for a while. We do workbooks and stuff with him, and he's reading. And affirmation, right? Hey, it's okay. You're doing good. And not just when they do good, though, right? Because it's a confidence thing. You have to build that confidence, right? And so it's, oh, well, hey, yes, you got that word wrong. And acknowledging that, I think it's important that you acknowledge the failure, because you can't just, hey, it's okay, just keep going. You have to acknowledge the fact that you failed and that it's okay for that. And you just keep going, right? Try it again. You'll get better at it. It's okay to fail. You'll get better. So not only the affirmation of, hey, you're doing a good job when they do a good job, but also, hey, when you fail, that's a good thing to be like, because failing is good, right? Sure. And to build them up that way as well, I guess. And that's, as a father, I guess that's what I try to do. That
there are lessons in their mistakes. And so when it's something my mom said years ago, white kids get the benefit of making a mistake and finding out where they went wrong to get to the right answer. Whereas Black kids, there's this idea that if you failed, and you failed everyone. You represent the whole community if you got that F somehow. And so that, there's a different type of burden. I remember her, pointing out that when it came to adventurous things, when I was a kid, if I wanted to learn how to swim and jump off the deep end of, the end of a pier at Chris Green Lake in Charlottesville, her instinct would be to say, no, stop, don't. And you see other kids my age, white kids my age, just taking off running, and whether they know how to swim or not, it doesn't matter. They'll figure it out by the time they hit the water. And there's this sort of conditioning of, on one hand, thinking that we're protecting our kids by being, let me just make sure you don't take these huge risks and fail, because, if you fail, we all fail type mentality. as opposed to, well, see what happens. You know, if you win, you win. If you don't, well, what can we learn from the loss? And so I think I think Jeremiah's point to that also just seems really familiar and a great, great value. Dr. Smith, you got some thoughts there?
I do. So I think that we need to see our past experience as asset filled. So in your in some of the examples, it's like I'm just from this small place, you know, and so you're ascribing a feeling on that space. But if you see that formative experience as asset based, what were the things that came from that experience that make you actually more equipped to be in that room than maybe some other students? And so when you're looking in the classroom, we look at teachers that need to be looking at assets that their students are bringing to the table. There might be some things that they need to learn, but they all come with assets. And within the family unit, when we're talking about assets, I think when we reframe our experiences from that perspective, that helps to work against the imposter syndrome, because you're not looking at what you didn't have, you're looking at what you did have and what was there for you. You know, so if you had this strong family unit, that kid that had $1 million might have been raised by their nanny. You never know, you know, and so when you might be coming in whole or more whole than that person is coming in. So I focus on my formative experiences. I don't particularly want to be separated from them.
Yeah.
I want to look at them as assets and as sacrifices that were poured into me so that I can be in the moment. So I don't want to be bifurcated from them, but I want them to fuel me and back me up within that space.
I feel like ancestors at your back. Yes.
I feel like there's something about having a positive experience with your past and sort of reconciling what that is and standing in it. And I love the whole idea of assets based, because we used to say, you know, at risk. And it's like, no, we promise you, you know, students with assets, let's look at what it means to have non-traditional assets. And I think when you can stand in your own truth and your own stuff and your own story, no one can have power over you. So when you walk into that room, you own that. And I think particularly we as Black people, when you think about enslavement, just getting here on those boats, that there were millions of people who died and somehow your family got here and we were enslaved and people died and you survived. And right. And when I think of like even my family line and segregate, just everything that could happen. And the fact that you are here speaks to your strength and the strength of the line that you come from. And so rather than, you know, how do you channel that and focus on that and stand in that and your power of, this is why I deserve to be in this classroom. This is why these are my assets. I've come from these incredibly strong people where a lot of folks would have just been broken by this, and yet here I stand. What does that say about me and my own strength? And I struggle to do that, but I try.
But how do we get that mindset across the entire culture? Like that's the question. I mean,
what's the megaphone for that?
Yeah, who's really thinking that when we're still being shot by cops? I mean, I definitely think the education system should play a part in it, but we all know, like, I can't fathom why New York has a police budget of $6 billion with the B when education and teachers are still buying their supplies and students are going hungry. I'm like, priorities are completely distorted. So how do we, I think it's beautiful. Well, how do we get to that point? And honestly, families, I think we're not necessarily all there. My granddad still had an elementary school education. He wasn't able to even mentally fathom to get to that point, to even teach my mom, for my mom to teach me. So, but how do we get to that point? Like, yeah, what's the megaphone? How do we get there?
Any takers on that? Because I think what Justin laid down just now is like, you know, that's the reality of it. I think we've been kind of, and both are important, right? The hope of it all is important. The expansive vision of it all is important. But then how do we do it? How do we make it happen? Some of it might be realized in what we are seeing in some of this police reformation, for instance, defunding certain agencies, not just police, but different agencies that seem to be money sucks, you know, in terms of local budgets and different things. But what we're talking about is an overhauling of a slice of American culture, in a sense. It is the re-education of, or the education of, a country that has built itself on the narrative that we are a demographic of people that are still pulling ourselves up from the bootstrap of the enslaved, and we're not ever going to let you forget it by constantly reminding you of things that you don't want to let go of. I don't want to let go of the fact or the history or the strength of knowledge that my I was 6 years old when Mama Elsie died. She was the daughter of enslaved people in Nelson County, Virginia. Like, I touched someone who touched it. And so when they say it's so far back, not really. And so how do we then, as Justin said, take, as Dr. Smith said, take that information, hold it as currency, as assets, empowerment? How do we take what Justin says and, you know, where's the megaphone, or what are the constructs of being able to, you know, share that message with everyone? You know, what Dr. Blackwell is saying, you know, really make sure that we're communicating, you know, from the youth up, you know, that they're in a room that they belong in, and empower that. I think I just started rambling. My bad.
I think it comes in a lot of different spaces. I mean, we've talked about education. We've talked about the family unit. I don't think the police are going to help us do this. You know, I don't think, you know, so I don't think that this is a conversation that's an outward conversation. This is about African Americans sharing this information, however we decide we're going to do that. You know, the school system is part of it, but I also agree, as what Stephen was saying and many others, that the family unit is also part of it. But at some point, you have to start. You know, I don't think that there's a panacea. You know, there's not this one idea that's going to sprinkle this idea across the country. But as we start to give some of these tools to parents and tools to kids about how they think and begin to reframe how they think about themselves, it will start to grow. You know, at this point, many times we don't even talk about our history because we're trying to protect our kids from that kind of thing. So a reconnection to history is part of it too. You know, you said you touched your grandma that touched slavery. You know, some students there are some kids that don't even have that connection.
Sure.
So even though our families were broken, they're broken here too. You know, when you've had all of this this urbanization, families have moved away from each other. You don't have everybody living in the same plot of land where people can interact with each other in a way that provides them with that undergirding of what their families went through and what that struggle was.
Sure.
So really, it's grassroots. I don't know how else to really say. It's a grassroots effort where those of us that are teaching teachers need to help those teachers understand about asset-based approaches. Those of us that are parents of kids need to demand asset-based approaches. You know, there's a lot of prongs to this. And then you need to teach history in your own family. Don't be ashamed of that. Teach that, you know, so that your student can show up in a space and be confident.
Whose shoes have you tried to slide into? Who's the mentor or the person who impacted your life most significantly to the point where you felt yourself having to slide into their shoes? And what did that feel like for you?
Mine was my mother. She passed away 30 years ago this year. And my mother was born the daughter of sharecroppers and just had nothing and sort of tried to build herself up and really believed in the American dream, which I found out was an illusion as I became an adult. And that was part of my journey and my struggle, was trying to slide into the shoes of this woman who was so hopeful, who had had so little and done something with it, and me going, but I have so much and where am I? And understanding that meritocracy is a myth, and understanding, systemic racism and all these things. But I think yeah, for me, and now I've let that go, and I'm just inspired by her and trying to like, you know, live into like become my own woman, but being inspired by her. But definitely that was a struggle of this woman is so strong and she's so outspoken and so much. I'll never be that, and just trying to figure out who is Monique in that, but inspired by my past.
So I'll go. Okay. I think that it is it's a tie between my grandmother, who is the original Stella. So I've always been the second Stella,
yeah,
the original Stella, and my father. My grandma was just a figure to behold. So we'll just put a pin in that. But my dad made some choices when he was a child or when he was like right out of high school, he went into the military, that changed the trajectory of my family's existence forever. Not only our unit, but like the whole family unit. All his brothers went into the military. We all moved into different places. And so his choices really made an impact on our family unit. And so I've always wanted to make sure that the choices that I'm making are choices that impact my whole family. Choices that will make a difference for the whole unit, not only just myself.
Stephen, I'm gonna go around the robin now.
Okay, so for me, I've juggled across careers, and so I've had to change these people, these mentors over the years. When I was studying to be an accountant, I had somebody. When I was studying to be a community developer for my master's, I had somebody. But right now, the one person I always, I've read about, when I look through his resume, I'm like, wow, is this a human being? I mean, that is Dr. Fred Bonner. I'm like, I was in page 14 of his resume or CV when I was like, I need to duplicate this guy. I need to be the next Dr. Bonner. He's my mentor. He's my professor, and I don't know if I'm going to strive to be him as much as possible, or even better. But I'm just on the pathway. I would have loved to use my parents like everybody's using right now, but typical of African parents, I'm not going to use my parents. I have my reasons. It's not that, like, which is typical. And my friends, they all experience the same thing. Our parents try to pitch us against our friends and say, hey, look at that guy. Why can't you be better than him? So we all live in competition.
Sure.
And trying to be better than each other. Although healthy competition, but I mean, I don't want to do that to my kids. I mean, there are other ways to achieve success than just pitching each other against ourselves. Yeah. So Dr. Bonner would be that person.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate depiction of the reaction we all had when Dr. Bonner shared with us his CV, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to give." I think we actually asked for it in class one day. We wanted to see what was in it, because we just know how prolific and brilliant the man is. And when he sent it to us, I could almost sense his chest poking out just a little bit, because I was like, golly, same exact reaction. And yeah, when Stephen says, when I got to page 14 or whatever it was like, it was at that point, it was just a good read. It was like, wow. Yeah, excellent choice. Justin.
Not to jump back, but it'll definitely be my granddad. He elementary school education, but everyone respected this man. The people at the bank, the people at the restaurant, everyone in the family, everyone in the town. He was so giving. I mean, he spoke when he needed to, but he didn't speak a lot. And he got up early every morning. I even try to get up every morning around 5 a.m. just because with him, he had to feed the hogs. But for me, it's just getting up and meditating. You see how that privilege works when you work so hard, your kids and your grandkids get to experience that. And I was just in awe at how much everyone loved and respected him. And he was genuinely an incredible, awesome human being.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Blackwell?
Yeah, I'm having trouble. It's a challenge, I think, to come up with somebody, in part because my parents were always kind of putting me in a position to do better than what they did, and so I often really felt like I was kind of charting a course with few examples within my family. But the one person that kind of came to my mind immediately, and it's not filling shoes in the same way that I think Elvin is trying to fill Dr. Huxtable's shoes, but it's similar in that my grandmother always valued education. It was just something that she was always pushing. And so even though she only got through high school, which at the time was a big deal, she was 99 when she died last year. But her focus on education is something that I always wanted to live up to. And so, I think going through school in the way that I have is really a testament to her encouragement and her kind of vision for what she hoped for me.
Darryl?
Man, you guys are truly amazing. I'm gonna tell you a quick story real quick. When I was in elementary school, they have these things about what do you want to do when you grow up. So I knew what I wanted to be at age 10, 11. I wrote, I'm going to be a lobbyist. The counselor called my parents and told me that I needed to be more realistic, that I would be a good plumber, I would be a good mechanic. And my parents would not accept that for me. So I thank them for allowing me to find my own wings. Well, I went on to be a lobbyist, and I also went back to that counselor and explained that they may have ruined the lives of a lot of young Black boys and girls with that nonsense. But the person that molded me was a guy named Durwood Curley. He was the lobbyist for the U.S. Savings and Loans Association, and old grumpy white guy. And he took me and he showed me, he took me to country clubs, taught me which fork to use, taught me how to put the glasses on at an opera, and all that nonsense that I never would have done and that I really didn't even like doing. But what it allowed me to do was to put me in a position that I would be able to network and achieve my dreams.
Yes, sir. Jeremiah?
Honestly, I don't have one, which I think has allowed my mind to kind of create that shoe. You know what I mean? Which is, kind of maybe one of the things that puts me into, when we go back to the imposter syndrome, that makes me get into those moods, because I've created a pair of shoes that's so big that now I have to live up to, because I have nothing to ground that, I guess. And so really now I have to live up to those shoes so that my sons do have somebody's shoes, that they feel like I can be that shoe that that person feels like they need to step into.
I feel you.
But I think that's where I'm at with it.
I feel you. Okay, so to finish out tonight, I want to finish off with the question that we love to answer. And for those who have been on the show already, I'm going to have Laura send you to the holding spot and bring all of our guests for whom they will be able to answer who is your favorite Huxtable and which Huxtable were you most like if it's two different Huxtables. We're going to just take it clockwise, I suppose, and start with Stephen. Who was your favorite Huxtable and which Huxtable were you most like? And he said, well, I'm going to think. I was like, is he not? He don't want to?
I'll say. Okay, my favorite Huxtable will be Peach. The second part of the question will be, Cliff.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Because your temperament is very much fun-loving and light, but still, kind of grounded with all this wisdom and care. It makes sense. It makes sense. Darryl, who was your favorite Huxtable? And if different, which Huxtable were you most like?
My favorite Huxtable, she was so favored to me, I can't remember her name. It's Aisabokhae, the part that she played.
Oh, Denise.
Yeah, it's probably because I just like Aisabokhae. But the Huxtable that I think I'm most like is I think the role that I'm playing now.
Yeah, that seems about right. Jeremiah.
It's got to be Theo, right? I loved Theo. Now I was born in '93, a year after it ended, so I caught the tail end of it, growing up, and I was young, so didn't get into all the philosophical stuff in there, But Theo was definitely he was always just fun. He was the fun son, and that's what I always felt like. So he's kind of the answer to both my questions, who I felt the most like and who I liked the most, for sure.
Sure. Excellent. Justin. Muted. You're muted. Yep.
There we go.
Yep. There you go.
Awesome. Who I liked the most was Claire Huxtable. I mean, I was just amazed by the fire, the intellect, and especially when she would cut Elvin with his misogynistic ways. It was just incredible to see, like, just a strong Black woman. And then the next answer to the question would be Denise. Going to Hillman, that completely changed my life. That's why I went to an HBCU, because she went to an HBCU, and I was like, what?
Yeah,
we literally lived Hillman.
Yeah. That's awesome. And Dr. Blackwell.
Yeah, so I think my favorite probably was Rudy. She was closest to my age, and I thought she was just so funny. She and Cliff, the way they would go back and forth, and they would bring her in to kind of just make a quick joke. And so I always liked Rudy. In terms of who I'm most like, it's kind of an odd choice, but maybe Sandra. I think that she's kind of follow the straight and narrow path kind of person. And so I tend to fall into that role. And so, she's kind of a boring choice, but I think I'm probably most like Sandra.
Yeah. Well, anyone watching the series will know there's no such thing as a boring choice. That Sandra also had her wealth of dynamic twists and turns.
Yeah.
I think it was Red Summer who pointed out that Sandra was the first to be an entrepreneur, to step out and take incalculable risk in starting the Wilderness Store with I'm sitting here going, with who? Who's the guy she's with Elvin, the guy we focused on tonight. And so Sandra, with all of her seemingly straight and safe choices, or straight and safe essence, still had a lot of dynamic energy about her. And I sense the same of you as well, Gretta. Y'all, look, we've been on here an hour and 37 minutes, a little bit better than what I did last time with the 2 hours. But what I will say about the last show and us going a smooth 2 hours, I have gotten the hugest response from that show. We've gotten emails, we've gotten text messages and tweets, and people who said they sought out help, or they really took something from that show. And so as I'm trying to stay at about an hour and a half, sometimes community just has to, sit around the campfire and tell stories and talk, and maybe it takes a little longer to get there. In that case, tonight, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I want to thank all of our guests for coming on. I want to thank our performers for performing the roles of Elvin and Cliff tonight. You will see Darryl again on Thursday in his role of Cliff as we read chapter 7, Olivia. as you can see, we have this image of the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. And that's a part of the narrative. If you've read the book, you know that one of the characters from the Huxtable family perished on 9/11. Cliff mentioned that, you know, things have not been the same. He did say in the story tonight that it was in fact Martin who passed away on duty on 9/11. And so we will explore that in addressing the topic, the panel discussion topic of the night, We Feel Pain Too, Black Women Managing Trauma. That's what I got for tonight. And I appreciate you coming by and hanging out with us. Have a great couple of days and we'll see you on Thursday. All right, bye y'all.